So you bought a house and it's gone up a lot in value, especially in the last 2 years, and now you have beaucoup bucks in equity. And you want to use that equity, but you can't choose how. What's up guys, it's Avery here. I love real estate, and I love the fact about real estate that you can buy property mostly using someone else's money, like the bank, and then it'll increase in value, and you get all of that increase in your name, and then you can take all of that increase in equity and buy even more property the same way while still using other people's money. In this video, I'll talk about 2 ways that you can take money out of your property, the 2 most common ways: a home equity line of credit or a Heloc, as well as a cash out refinance. And I'm going to go over the pros and cons of each one and why you may choose one over the other, as well as a real world example, because we love real world examples because it allows us to see what it may actually look like in our own lives. First, I'm going to talk about a home equity line of credit, or a Heloc as I'll refer to it, and all of the bad things associated with it. The first thing being that most people don't like them because it is a second lien or a second mortgage on your property. If you default on this home equity line of credit, then the bank could come after your house. And if it's your primary residence, that's going to freak you out a little bit, and you're not going to want to lose that house, especially if you're already keeping up with that mortgage payment. The other thing people also don't like is that in order to get the equity from your property, you are paying interest on this money. So you've earned all of this equity, seen all of the market appreciation, now you want to use it, you get this home equity line of credit, which is basically like that credit card for your home, and then you go and use it, but now you're paying interest on the money that you've earned, which to you kind of sucks. You wouldn't really want to pay interest on it. Another negative thing about a home equity line of credit is they are often given with an adjustable rate mortgage. Usually they follow prime mortgage rates, which can fluctuate. We've seen them go up and down in the last couple of years, from 4% in 2019 down to mid-2s in 2020 and 2021, and now they're back up to around 4%. So as that prime mortgage rate changes, your payment and the interest that you pay if you've used any of your home equity line of credit will also change. And the last thing that isn't as good about a home equity line of credit is that they're much more difficult to get on properties that aren't your primary residence. Most banks don't like giving Helocs out on an investment property or a second home loan, because the very reason why you're scared of potentially getting a home equity line of credit is that it's secured to your property. If you lose out on your investment property or your second home loan, you'll still have a place to live. But if it's on your primary residence and you can't keep up with those Heloc payments, you'll know that you might be pushed out to the street, so you're more likely to make those payments from the bank's perspective. Those are some reasons why a home equity line of credit makes people a little bit nervous, but I think there are far more pros that outweigh some of those cons when it comes to a home equity line of credit. I think for anyone who has a primary residence out there, they should 100% get a home equity line of credit, because when you open one, you don't have to use it and you're not penalized if you do not use it. You can just have that Heloc there in case of an emergency, so it's awesome just to open one. And like I said, it's much easier to open one on your primary residence. So if you have a primary residence and you've built some equity, you can just open one, and it's very inexpensive to do so, which is another awesome benefit of a Heloc. When you open a Heloc, it usually costs around $50, maybe $100 to open, depending on which institution you go with. And if you're trying to get one of these, definitely go with a smaller credit union or smaller bank, because they'll have better terms. And you can just open that, let it sit there with that bank, and you could just never use it. And if you just have it sitting there, you're not paying interest on it. You will only pay interest on the amount that you use. The other thing that I find extremely beneficial from a Heloc that people don't like, which I talked about, was interest. But I think the best part of a Heloc is that you can pay only interest payments if you'd like for 10 years. That's how a majority of Helocs are. They are interest only payments. If you take out, say for example, $50,000, you are not going to be paying back principal and interest. You can just pay back the interest, which will be a very small amount of money, especially given today's rates. You can pay that principal back if you want to, but if you find you put that Heloc into a property and you don't want to pay the Heloc off and just pay the simple amount of interest that you have on it, because the cash flow from that new property is covering it, then you can just do that, and then come 10 years, you will have to then pay back that $50,000 amount. So it might not make sense to a lot of you that I think it's awesome that you pay interest only, but I really do, because that means that you have a much smaller payment. If you use $20, $30, $40, $50,000 worth of this home equity line of credit, that's going to be probably $100, $150 every single month in a payment, which can be very inexpensive for you to pay off that debt if you go use that debt to buy another property. Now, if you're using that debt for something stupid, like buying other liabilities like a boat or a car, and then you now have this other liability that you pay for and you're paying for it with this home equity line of credit, then definitely don't get a home equity line of credit. Only pull equity out of your property if you're going to use it to buy stuff that will actually make you more money, aka an asset. The other cool thing about Helocs is that you can take out other Helocs to pay off your other Helocs. This is something that very many wealthy people do, is they take out more loans to pay off these other loans. So if your interest only period is over with that Heloc that you have associated with this one house, and you've moved out of that house and you now rent it out and you live in another primary residence, and this 10 years is coming up, you can take out a Heloc on this new primary residence and pay off that old Heloc and basically start the entire process again. But if you don't want to do that and you want to get rid of a lot of the debt on your plate, if you've done really well with real estate and acquiring more and more properties and more rentals, you can always just pay off that home equity line of credit and no longer have any payments. So I really like Helocs because they have massive flexibility. Even though there is that interest, you can use that money for a lot of things, or you can never use it and there's no real penalty for you not using it, and it's good to just have it open. A cash out refinance is the other most common way for you to get equity out of your property, and cash out refinances pretty much have one pro and one con. And the pro is that you're getting a bunch of tax-free money out of your property. If the bank cuts you a check for $110,000, you just have $110,000. You can use it for whatever you want, and it is 100% tax-free. So the biggest con, and there are actually other couple ones that I'll touch on, is the fact that your mortgage will increase. So you bought this property, it's increased $300,000 in value. You want to take out a $200,000 cash out refinance. This does not mean that your loan amount will stay the same. Basically, the bank is increasing your loan amount and giving you that difference. So now you have a bigger loan, which in most cases would mean a higher mortgage, unless during the period in which you did your cash out refinance, you went from a really high interest rate to a much lower interest rate, which happened for a lot of people in the last couple of years. So this is why many people on their primary residence do not like taking out a cash out refinance, because now you have a higher mortgage payment and it might be more than you want to pay off. Or it could be during a period where you've gone from really low interest rates like sometime last year, and even though you've built up a lot of equity, you could be changing to a much higher rate, and that might not be worth the extra money for you because it will also add to the amount of mortgage payment you have every month. And the last con, especially if this is your primary mortgage, is that there will be closing costs. When you take out that home equity line of credit, $50, $100, maybe maximum $300. I've not really seen any that high, but let's just say that. But with a cash out refinance, you're getting a brand new loan, you have a brand new product, and that means you have to go through all closing. So there's going to be title, attorney fees, mortgage origination fees, all of those things that happened when you first bought the property, which can be somewhere between $7,000, maybe $12,000, which could be a lot of money and may not make it worth it. My real world example, I'm not actually going to get into deep dive numbers because everybody's situation is different. When you're watching this video, rates may have gone up or have gone down, and things can change drastically. But I think that as a good rule of thumb, and I absolutely hate rules of thumb, but I think a good rule of thumb is that with your primary residence, you should focus on trying to get a home equity line of credit, especially if you plan on living in that property for a while and then maybe renting it out, because it'll still be your property. And a second lien against your property doesn't really bother you that much because you know you will hold on to this property, it's in a good area, and you can take that HELOC and buy more and more assets with it. But with a cash out refinance, I think they work very well with an investment property or a second home that you're renting out on Airbnb, because the value of the loan may increase a little bit, but if your cash flow can still cover it, then it might make sense. If, for example, you are cash flowing $1,000 a month with your investment property, and then you get a cash out refinance, and now you're only cash flowing $500 a month, that might not bother you if you just got a fat $150,000 check in your pocket. Now that I've talked about both kinds, the HELOC as well as the cash out refinance, I want to hear from you guys. Which one would you open and why? And what would you actually plan on doing with that money? Definitely curious, pop it in the comments below. If you're still watching, make sure you go down below, grab your free stocks from Moomoo. If you put in just over $1, you can get a bunch of free stocks valued up to $3,500, as well as if you use my link, it will help me out as a creator and I'll definitely appreciate it. But no pressure, you could go ahead and not get free stocks and open up an account with Moomoo somewhere else. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any content like this. playlists and hit that notification bell so you get notified when I make more videos. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button so that helps me out for the YouTube algorithm. And if you like me here, don't forget to check me out on TikTok as well as Instagram. I make a lot of the same videos, but in short form. Thanks again for watching, and more wealth is coming your way.